scientific team regarding the shroud image. The actual image was created by a phenomenon as yet unknown, or a momentous event that caused a rapid cellulose degradation, aging, of the linen fibers. That is, an accelerated dehydration and oxidation of the very top linen fibrils of the cellulose fibers of the shroud, thereby creating a sepia or straw yellow colored image similar to that of a scorch. In other words, the image was caused by something, nobody knows what, that affected only the very top of the fibrils that make up the fibers that in turn make up the fabric.
After thousands of hours of intense study, the world was left with yet another scientific enigma. A piece of fabric that is demonstrably hand-woven containing a surface anomaly in the shape and form of a crucified man, created by some process of undetermined origin.
But how could an image containing so much information have been formed? There are those who believe the image could only have been formed by a burst of some sort of radiation. But the simple fact is, nothing like the shroud image has ever been found or reproduced. But that's only the beginning of the astounding information to be gleaned from this amazing image. In spite of skeptics and setbacks, scientists continue their search. And Dame Isabel Pitzik, a particle physicist, believes the shroud has brought science to the threshold of a whole new understanding of physics. While dealing with the position of the body within the cloth, she discovered one of those mysterious properties that cannot be, yet somehow is. An interface that divides the image transport into two hermetically separate yet simultaneous actions and forces, causing the shroud to be taut and parallel on both sides, creating a true event horizon.
In general relativity, we have found that there are certain things called black holes. Now, the surface of a black hole is called an event horizon. And it's called that because right at that surface, the laws of physics seem to change character drastically.
When you look at the image of the shroud, the two bodies next to each other, you feel that it's a flat image. But if you create, for instance, a three-dimensional object, as I did, the real body, then you realize that there is a strange dividing element, an interface, from which the image is projected up and the image is projected down. The muscles of the body are absolutely not crushed against the stone of the tomb. They are perfect. It means that the body is hovering between the two sides of the shroud. What does that mean? That there is absolutely no gravity. Other strange things you discover, that the image is absolutely undistorted. Now, if you imagine that the cloth was wrinkled, tied, wrapped around the body, and all of a sudden you see a perfect image, which is impossible unless the shroud was made absolutely taut, rigidly taut. Everybody thinks that the tomb signifies death. Not at all, the exact opposite. The shroud and the tomb signifies an unbelievable beginning, because in the depth of the collapsed event horizon, there is something which science knows as singularity. This is exactly what started the universe in the Big Bang. We have nothing less in the tomb of Christ than the beginning of a new universe.
For centuries, the shroud has been viewed and analyzed as a record of a death, the end of the physical being. But Isabel Pitzik is suggesting that it is, in fact, just the opposite, a record not of an ending, but a beginning, which would suggest resurrection in its truest sense. And according to Dame Pitzik, this is the starting base for the new physics. But is Isabel Pitzik out on a limb of physics where no one else wants to go? Perhaps not. Recently, a group of scientists trying to identify those things that are fundamental to the way nature works made some startling discoveries. Dr. Edgar Mitchell, the sixth man to walk on the moon, founder of the Institute of Noetic Sciences, author and lecturer, explains.
The classical traditional model in physics, which began in Newtonian times, describes how particles and atoms and molecules move and recombine. Even most of the 20th century, physicists only looked at the particle aspect of it and did not really concentrate very much on the informational aspect. And it's only really with the quantum hologram that we have brought information up to a par of importance with energy itself and with physicality, so that we understand that the universe we live in not only exists because of its physicality, but it's understood because of its information. And this is a powerful new concept. And all physical bodies have such a holographic emission that is available non-locally, which means throughout the universe, non-locally at all times.
Could it be the event horizon demonstrated by the image on the shroud sent information instantaneously throughout the universe? And does this mean that the resurrection was a universal event?
Physics has achieved a lot of success, and we think that we have pretty much everything, but it turns out we know we don't. We know there are missing links. We know there are puzzles and infinities cropping up all the time. And believe me, people are working to find some answers. But in spite of our successes, there are still some mysteries abounding.
UFO sightings around the world have reached an all-time high. According to data from the National UFO Reporting Center, UFO sightings experienced a boom in the 1980s. Reported sightings went from less than 5,000 in 1980 to about 10,000 in 1990. But between 1990 and 2000, sightings rose by nearly 30,000. In those 10 years, more than 45,000 sightings were recorded, a record. And it appears the spike in UFO sightings was not an anomaly, but a trend. In an 8-year period from 2002 to 2009, more than 36,000 UFOs were reported. Since then, more than 11,000 more UFOs were reported, with more than 47,000 being cataloged since 2010. Statistician and PhD candidate Sam Montfort brought this information to light. With the collection of data from the reporting center, Montfort found that individuals are far more likely to spot a UFO in the US than anywhere else in the world. He reports that on average, there are 2,500 sightings reported per 10 million people. That's 300 times higher than the global median. Northwestern and northeastern states have filed the most reports citing per capita. Perhaps with 7 new known planets in the universe, we could experience even more close encounters in the future. For Fox News, I'm Rob Demetrius.
That's my faith. Like I said, there's no solid proof he's real. We see all around us that he's real, but you can't do a DNA test on God. You can't get his fingerprints. No one knows what he looks like. There's only one. He created everything and he's in control of everything, and he chooses to the relationship between us and Him. He loves us all and He's there for us, and He wants us to know that. And He wants us to believe He's there for us, which requires we have to believe He's real. This is all a matter of faith. That's what God wants from all of us, to believe that He's real, even though there's no actual proof. But look all around and He'll give you everything you need to see this. But in our world now, then this is why I believe we see all these signs. We see the devil and the fallen angels causing all this chaos in the media. Things are horrible in the news all the time. This is an attempt to keep everybody's mind off of what is actually taking place in the world. God has done so many miracles in our time to try to get all of our attention and show us that He's real. But He knows can't give us solid proof, so He's going to give us all this stuff to renew our faith in Him. God, it's a time for change. And we've been hearing Jafar sounds, apocalyptic trumpets. But apocalyptic trumpet sounds are being heard all around the world. That should be a wake-up call all by itself. We shouldn't even have to worry about what's causing them. I'm sure God could make somebody's car horn go off repeatedly if He chose to. People take these occurrences and try to find some kind of scientific proof that it's real or it's not real, of what people believe. And they're missing the whole point that, hey, this is going on and this is to get your attention so you can look at this here. I believe that's the way God is working right now in our time. We also see the signs in the weather patterns, extreme weathers, volcanoes, earthquakes, floods. You know, I think another thing that's going on in the world's eye is, maybe the Bible may not say this, but Donald Trump's our president. Who would have ever thought? I wasn't for sure what to think back in the beginning. I had nothing against Donald Trump, but I didn't know the man, you know. But when he was running towards the end, middle, the last half of his campaign, when he was running for president, I really started seeing things. And I also got to see that he appeared like he was trying to let us all know that Elvis Presley is alive. There was always sightings of Elvis supposedly in the crowd. Guys with white beards. I can't say if any of that was really Elvis. I never tried to prove it was. I never tried to prove it wasn't. But one time I showed the whole speech and I showed what he said. But when he was in a campaign, he was talking about Obamacare, and then he stopped and he said he's seen Elvis out in the crowd. And he said, "Hi, Elvis." And then he went back talking about what he was talking about. I think he was giving us a big sign right there that Elvis Presley is alive. And I showed the whole speech, and people will say that was an impersonator in the crowd. If you go back and watch the whole speech, there was nothing about no impersonator in the crowd. I do believe Donald Trump was trying to tell us that night, as well as other nights during his campaign, he was giving us clues that Elvis Presley is in fact alive. But there is something about Donald Trump. that is happening that I believe is all part of the stuff that I've been talking about the last few nights. I believe God put him in office for his purpose. Now people, when you look at this, nobody has to be a saint or a real highly intelligent religious man. And you don't have to be like that for God to use you. Remember that. God could use anybody he chooses. You don't have to believe in God for him to use you. But I believe that Donald Trump was put in office for God's purpose. And the whole big thing here is America's getting ready to face judgment. As I've been talking about the last few nights, the nation has got to repent for the nation's sins and put God back in the way of American life, which means we got to know he's real, we got to be aware, and just know that he loves us. That's what God wants from us. Put God back in the way of American life. Know he's there, know that he loves us. He's there for us if we need him. You know, I think that also means, most likely, put the Bibles back in hotels and schools. You know, you don't have to shove religion down people's throat. That is definitely nothing I would ever want to do. But you know, as I have been taken in at work, told don't talk about angels, you're not supposed to talk about God. That's wrong. To look down at that is very wrong in society today. We should get rid of that. People should have the freedom to talk about what they want to. And that means, you know, hold some decency about yourself. Don't talk about inappropriate stuff that will make people uncomfortable. Okay, the one thing that I want to point out here about Donald Trump, and since he's become our president of the United States, I support this guy completely. And it appears to me that he has done his part to try to put God back in the way of our life. Listen to the man talk. And he has prayers in his office with his staff. You know, this is what we're being shown. Listen to the man talk when he talks, addresses the country. Listen what he's saying about God. For that reason alone, because he's acknowledging God and how he's there for our country, that reason alone, I believe God put Donald Trump in office. And I believe that Mr. President Donald Trump will do an awesome job as long as we don't turn our back on God. Now, God chose for him to do his part. But so many people, and I guess the news media that I see all the time trying to make him look bad, but I encounter so many people that they say, I can't stand Donald Trump. I can't stand that man. And you're like, why? What don't you like about him? And you can actually be cool and talk to these people, and most of them have no idea. They'll be like, oh, I don't know, I just can't stand him. Can't stand looking at him. Can't stand listening to talk to him. But they have no reason at all for not liking him. But they are so set against him. And that's our President of the United States at this time. I think we should all, just because the simple fact, if you like the man or not, He is our president, and God chose him to be our president, and we should all be praying for him to help him be the most awesome president that he can be the most awesome president that America needs at this time.